Hello and welcome to another episode of the Golden Hour Podcast. I'm here yet again with my good friend Connor McCaskill to my right.
How we doing?
Joining us once again. And of course, this show is brought to you by Polar Pro. This is the Polar Pro Studio, aka my bedroom. I'm going to give a little Polar Pro plug here today. We've got the Peter McKinnon Mist Edition. So if you like V&D with a little bit of diffusion, we have that for sale. One of my personal favorites from Polar Pro, the Defender series. This is a teeny tiny little Defender.
I was going to say, you found the tiniest one I think they have.
Yeah, this is the smallest one. I use this for the 15 millimeter lens that I think is actually being used right now on my Olympus camera, on the wide shot. These are really handy dandy. I don't know, do you have any of these?
I actually don't, but we use them with the Zeiss lenses with Armando.
Yeah.
And it was really awesome because they would go over our gears that we added to the lenses, the extended gears essentially for focusing. And it was awesome. One of the coolest covers for your lenses you can get.
Yeah, I really love these. I mean, obviously most lenses come with a lens cap, but these Defenders are really great because they just kind of clamp on there like a little octopus would, just kind of suck onto your lens.
That's a way to put it.
And the beauty of it is that you can actually keep a filter on your lens, of course, if it's the same filter thread as this and the lens. And that's why I think one of the reasons why they made it is so that you can actually keep like a V&D on your lens and then just pop this on and it just sticks on there perfectly. Really handy to use. And if you buy a McKinnon filter, it actually comes with its own like special Defender case.
It's really awesome
for it. So yeah, thank you, Polar Pro. Go check them out, polarpro.com. We got some news this week.
Yeah.
A couple things happened in the industry. And by the way, guys, if you don't watch the videos, I would highly recommend doing it now. I know you've listened to the audio for so long.
Yeah, and you've also listened to Dave tell you to go watch the video for so long.
But we do have a lot of visual references here on the podcast. So if you're able to, play it while you're editing or doing things on the side, that way you can kind of follow along with us here.
It turns out a podcast about photos and video involves a lot of visuals.
Exactly.
Who knew?
So today we're talking about the new Sony drone. We're going to start out with that.
Yeah, okay, just right out the gate, huh?
Yeah, so obviously DJI is kind of the king when it comes to drones.
Absolutely.
And in our previous episode, we did talk about your experience with the Air 2S.
Correct.
But Sony has been teasing us with a new drone, and they just kind of released the more official specs and information on it recently to us. It's called the Airpeak drone. Here, let me move this.
Very trendy name.
Yeah, it's called the Airpeak, and we're going to play the launch trailer while we talk about it here.
Go ahead and full screen that.
Okay. So yeah, I think the thing that makes it most unique is the fact that it's, a drone that can fly an actual real, honest to goodness camera.
Yeah. I mean, we do have other drones that can do that, but they're pretty pricey. And they're pretty big. This actually looks relatively small. Kind of, for what it's doing, it's about the size of the Inspire 2.
Yep. It looks about the size of the Inspire 2. It's a quadcopter with landing gear that go up and down so that you can have enough clearance for a bigger camera.
Right. Again, just like the Inspire did.
Now, obviously, because it's a Sony drone, it's only working with, of course, Sony cameras.
Well, yeah. Sony likes to do stuff like that.
I'm sure that you could probably finagle it and use something else, I'm sure. But they've got a lot of information, like kind of technology built in with the Sony cameras. Obviously, you just plug it in over USB-C, I believe, or some sort of connection, maybe even to the hot shoe. That gives you full control of the
camera on a Sony drone flying at Sony headquarters.
Sony headquarters.
Wow.
So
come on, Sony.
Yeah, so imagine flying an A7S III, 4K 10-bit 60 frames per second or 120 frames per second or whatever on a drone. And being able to adjust your settings, your aperture, your shutter speed. It's a real actual camera in the sky. Now, I'm not too impressed with this footage here. It's funny. Every time, like back in the day, me and my friend Jeffrey would always make fun of Sony commercials because it's like, it's very sharp. It's very sharp. Like they're always trying to make everything look as sharp and crisp as possible.
Right.
This doesn't look very cinematic to me, but
I mean,
it's very blue.
It's very blue, actually.
They didn't
it looks
do a good job on the
fine.
color.
It doesn't look bad. I see what you're saying, though. Overly sharp. It looks a little video-y for sure.
They should have had a colorist do it. Although
they probably
I'm sure
shot it on a Sony camera, so how much color can they do, you know?
Whoa.
Come on.
Yeah, we don't know much about it other than this kind of initial release here. It will be available in the fall.
I saw somewhere, I don't know if it's true, because I don't see it on the actual website right now, but I saw something about $9,000 for the drone, which $9,000 for the drone doesn't come with a camera.
Yeah, so you got
to pay for the camera.
Exactly.
So another few $1,000s there. I mean, we're talking a good bit over $10,000.
This is designed specifically for, real working aerial cinematographers out there that need something better than an Inspire.
Yeah, but also for very specifically someone who shoots on an FX3 or lower end camera, which is kind of interesting. Now, you said we could probably maybe retrofit other cameras, but I feel like the people that are going to spend, maybe I'm not reading this right, but I feel like the people who are going to spend this much money on a drone are probably using better cameras than the FX3.
Well, so here's the thing. The Inspire 2 with the X7 camera is so good. The quality is so good that a lot of cinematographers are using that in films and movies.
Right.
I have a friend who owns a company called Snaproll Media here in Nashville, and it's a professional drone company. They do stuff for Netflix and all these different movies and stuff.
Right.
And they're using the Inspire 2 on like Mark Wahlberg movies, in the middle of nowhere. So having a tool like that, but then they also have like a gas-powered drone that can fly a red.
Yeah, exactly.
So this, to me, replaces the Inspire for a lot of people because it's still small, it's still compact. They're saying this is the world's smallest drone that can carry a full-frame Alpha Series mirrorless camera. So
that's pretty cool.
That is cool. You can put different lenses on it.
It's relatively the same price as the Inspire 2, right?
Yeah, relatively. And you're getting 4K 10-bit internal. I wonder if there's a way to record RAW as well through it, but I don't know. It says flight time up to 22 minutes. You can fly in winds up to 45 miles an hour.
Imagine if you can figure out how to hook up a Atomos. Yeah. Maybe you can do it then, but I don't know.
You can do dual operation mode for independent control of aircraft and gimbal. So you can have an operator controlling the camera while somebody's actually flying the thing. It's
a really cool piece of tech, but it's for people who want to shoot on Sony cameras / already have Sony cameras.
Yeah, this is not replacing a Mavic for anybody.
This is pretty, it's pretty hyper specific.
It is. And I would imagine they're not going to sell a ton of them. But it's cool. It's cool that it exists. It's cool that they're doing it. And to be honest,
it says that the, hold on, correct me if I'm wrong. It says the installed gimbal, camera, and lenses are sold separately.
Oh, really?
So the gimbal itself is separate as well, but they call it the installed gimbal. So that's really bizarre.
Maybe you could buy third-party gimbals then in the future, and that's why they're saying that. Or
maybe. Or I don't know.
Oh wait, the way they worded that means here's a picture of it in the photo. The installed gimbal, camera, and lens are sold separately.
Yeah, but that's still interesting that the gimbal to the drone is separate.
Yeah, I guess maybe it's different depending on which Sony camera you use. Maybe they sell you an A6400 version, and then they can sell you an A7S version.
That's a fair enough point. Although all those cameras are roughly the same size, so you think they could build something that can do all of them.
But it's Sony. They want to sell you more things.
Yeah, Sony's kind of interesting. I've talked about Sony. I probably make a lot of Sony people upset, but it's like there's just something about them. I just don't jive with Sony. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, you're an Xbox guy.
I'm an Xbox guy. Yeah, screw PlayStation. I mean, PlayStation's got some pretty cool exclusives.
Yeah.
But what am I doing? I don't know. I just like the underdog or something. I don't know.
I think all in all, the Airpeak S1 is probably going to be a big hit. I'm sure plenty of people are going to be using it. If you already own an A7S III, and you want to be able to, and you're willing to put that thing in the sky
and you're willing to shell out, $9,000-$10,000, plus your camera, and apparently plus the gimbal,
a depreciating asset.
Go for it.
I think
just get an Inspire 2 used.
Yeah, I think that the honest truth is that the only people buying this are going to be people who know they're going to make money off of this. Yeah, people who are doing shoots where this would just make sense. I mean, if you're shooting on a Sony camera, like Sony cinema camera, like a what is it, the
The X6 or 9?
Yeah, like those bigger,
yeah.
you know,
I mean, that's not going to fly it.
No, I know, but if you're shooting on a Venice and you're flying an A7S III, shooting S-Log 3, it will match up pretty good.
That's a fair point.
So if you're shooting on those types of cameras, this will be great.
But it's again, a less valuable camera to lose if it crashes, I guess, is something to consider as well. One other thing that I could say about it that could be a good thing is Sony has some pretty dang good low light, so it might be the best low light drone.
That's true.
Technically,
imagine flying this drone with the A7S, like filming the northern lights. You know,
yeah, you could do some really cool work with it. It is hyper specific, super niche. It's kind of interesting.
Well, at least you could throw some Polar Pro filters on the lens, and you're in business. We already make filters for Sony bodies. So.
That's right. Well, they work for all the bodies.
We'll have to. I know exactly. We'll have to see. It's interesting. It'll be real expensive and really hyper niche, but it's cool. And I think what's the most cool about this is somebody is competing with DJI.
Yeah, it's weird that Sony built a drone that looks kind of like an Xbox.
It's true. I feel like Sony's the only company.
It even has an X.
Sony's the only company that could really, because they have the money, compete with DJI.
Yeah, it's true.
All these other companies like try, and they just, you know, if you're like a startup, there's no way you can keep up.
Yeah.
But Sony has so much money that they can do it. So pretty exciting. Another exciting thing, we were talking about this in the previous episode, Canon doesn't have very many lenses for their RF mount system.
Yeah.
And sure enough, here we are a week later, and Canon is planning to make three new prime lenses.
Yeah, and for the RF f1.2, which is quite nice.
Now, of course, these are going to be extremely expensive. I'm sure they're over $2,000 each. They'll probably be really heavy, too. Because
they're all the L series.
Canon makes really big, clunky lenses. But
that being said, it's the RF mount, so because it has a wider mount, it'll be shorter.
Yeah, it will be shorter. So it'll be balanced better.
Yeah. All the weight will be closer to the camera itself rather than kind of extended outwards.
Exactly.
Which is kind of nice.
But Canon seems to never really, like, prioritize size. They're always like... I mean, they do make it as small as they can. But like,
well, for them, I think they aren't like, I feel like a lot of cameras are like, how small can we make this?
Yeah.
Which is interesting. But I think Canon maybe is prioritizing quality.
Totally.
They're like
image quality.
Yeah. They're like, well, first let's make it look as best as we can.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll worry about maybe shaving off a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
Although, I don't know. Then again, their cameras like super overheat. So they don't, who knows what they're prioritizing over there.
So we're looking at some really great primes that everybody needs. A 35 1.2. Are you a 35 guy? Do you like the 35 millimeter equivalent?
You know, I do, but I think about it and I'm like, well, I like 35 millimeter on my crop sensor camera. So that's more like a 50 millimeter. Yeah. So I guess I like 50 millimeter.
A 35 millimeter f1.2. They already have a 50 1.2.
Yeah, the 50 1.2 is really nice. Honestly, I do like a little bit wider, not super wide. So even when I shot on like 24-70 or something along those lines, I would almost always, if I wanted to shoot wide, I would go 35.
Yeah.
Unless I really needed the space, then I go 24.
Well, they've got a 24 prime they're working on, an f1.2 24. That's a very awesome aperture for that wide of a lens.
Super fast lens.
That may be potentially one of the fastest 24s I've ever heard of, I think.
Yeah, I don't actually know. I'd have to Google some 24 millimeter lenses.
And then as a total nerd, I am really stoked about the 28 1.2. The 28 focal length is actually my favorite.
Why is that?
Because of what you just said earlier, except in my case, I find 28 is the perfect kind of, it doesn't have the, like when you go to 24, even though it's only a 4 millimeter difference, it just feels very distorted and
it's got to cross
angle.
That line at some point.
And then 28, like you still get a wide field of view, but it's not, you don't get that crazy distortion, and it's 35 is a little too tight for a lot of my personal shooting, just around the house with the kids.
Yeah.
So the 15 millimeter that's shooting our wide angle shot right now on the Olympus, that comes out to be about 30 millimeters, which is roughly 20.
Pretty close. Yeah.
I love that lens on that camera. And guess what? Your iPhone, if you use it, almost all phones have a 28 field of view on the main camera.
I'm sure Apple did a lot of science into psychology of the millimeters to see which one was the best.
It's just kind of the best all-arounder because it's not super wide and it's not super tight. So it's like right in the middle. Some people would argue that 35 is that, but in a lot of cases when you're just in close proximity, 35 is still a little too tight.
Right.
So the fact that they're giving the 28 mil a little bit of love is a big deal.
Right.
The Leica Q is a 28 millimeter. The Ryko GR camera, that's a 28 millimeter. And nobody seems to make good 28s. So we're getting a 35 1.2, a 28 1.2, and a 24 1.2 on RF.
Well, they also have a 28 to 70.
They do. That
which was
massive. Though.
Yeah, it's huge, super heavy lens. Although ironically enough, it that extra heft makes the lens super stable.
That's a good
I noticed
point.
when I was shooting with that lens, when Armando rented it and I was working with him, we kept talking about how oddly stable it was because it doesn't have lens stabilization.
It's because it's heavy.
But it's just because it's heavy.
It's a chunky bulb.
Yeah, with those lighter lenses and lighter cameras, you can move them a little more freely, which is awesome, but they're less stable.
Exactly.
So
that's a good point. I mean, weight always adds to it. I mean, that was the case with this chunky boy as well, the 1DC.
Right.
When we would use this, even with the small lenses, it was still pretty stable because the camera itself is huge.
Absolutely.
We always used those contact Zeiss lenses on this.
I love
It was
that
a great
combo.
pair. Do you miss it? You always have to hold it every episode.
I know.
It brings you back.
This time I won't do camera ASMR, but I do really like it a lot. And honestly, you should maybe just pick up one of those Zeiss lenses again, just to pair with this.
You're right.
It'd be really cool.
28.
Yeah, there you go.
That was the one we used, the 28 f2.8. It's
yeah,
small.
we use the 28 and we use the 50 a lot.
Yeah.
Those were kind
Those
of
are the only
two.
two that look good to us.
Yeah.
But that adds up to the RF prime lineup quite a bit. That gives us a 24, a 28, a 35, a 50, and an 85.
Okay.
That's essentially your full kind of essential primes.
Yeah, I would still like to see 100 in there. 100 macro would be great.
Yeah, if they do an RF macro, 100. Because right now there's a lot of, I know my friend Drew Photo, he has a R and he has to use the 100 macro all the time for work. And he's, just forced to always use that adapter. So while we're on the topic of Canon, there's some more rumors about the newer RF cameras.
Okay.
The EOS R7 and the R8.
Wow.
And apparently the headline here on Tech Radar is the rumors hint at the end for the EOS M mirrorless cameras. That means the end of the infamous M50.
Wow. What an end it would be. I mean, to be honest, the M50 is a really cool camera, but I never super cared for the EF-M lenses. They're okay.
They never put any love into that lineup. It seemed as if it was kind of like maybe Canon was kind of poo-pooing the idea of mirrorless for a while, and they're like, let's just make a small line that, all these mirrorless cameras are small, like the Sony cameras.
Maybe just like a throwaway line.
Let's just give them something that's tiny, compact, and for consumers.
Right.
And that's what the EOS M has always been.
And then it did really freaking well.
Did really well. The M50, we spoke with a Canon rep one time, and he said that it's like one of their top sellers on Amazon.
Yeah, it totally makes sense because it's a decent, small, portable camera that's easy to understand.
I still recommend it to people all the time.
Oh yeah, same. It's one of the good ones for like getting into it.
Mm-hmm. So what does this mean though? The R7 and R8, are they going to be crop bodies? I guess so. So it says there's a reliable Canon rumors person that speculates it's plausible, but from an unconfirmed source. Wow. So take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah,
but Canon
sounds like the whole jar of salt.
Canon could be preparing to launch as many as 3 RF cameras with smaller APS-C sensors.
Okay. I mean, that makes sense. You're going to start replacing the 90Ds and everything. They said that their RF mount was the future, and they were going to cycle out their EF mount. Makes sense.
Yeah. I would be happy if they started making RF crop lenses too, because my C70, which we're using right now, is a crop sensor, and I have to use a speed booster thing.
I feel like that's the natural step. Is to start making some crop censored RF native RF mount.
My worry is that, of course, it'll probably be like more consumer focused, not like if Sigma made an RF version of the 18 to 35 1.8, that'd be pretty cool. But
I think we need some consumer lenses. We have with these new lenses that they're announcing, which are all really great. But they're all super expensive. I mean, they didn't announce the price, but like you said, probably over $2,000 a piece, somewhere around there. Most people can't just shell out $2,000 a lens, so they need to come out with some lenses that are a couple $100.
I think the Canon 50 RF I'm pretty sure it's over $2,000. Yep, it's $2,300 for the 50. So I would imagine.
Although they have right there a Canon RF 50mm 1.8 for 200. We need more of those.
More of that.
Yeah, because there is an example of a decent lens, and it's a top seller. Makes sense because people shell out every penny they have to buy the R5, the R6, and then they're like, oh shoot, I need to buy a lens.
And they're doing
so
the same
they need
for,
some stuff.
There's that 35-1.8 macro that is really popular. That's only $500.
Right.
And there's not
a shot with that lens. It's decent.
There's not enough third parties doing RF. Like I would love to see, Sigma do more and Tamron and all those types of companies.
I think it's a matter of time.
Yeah, it'll happen eventually, but it just feels like because cameras come out so often, it does feel like things are happening really quickly, but then the lenses still just aren't there yet.
Yeah, and I guess maybe optics just take longer to create. I'm really not sure.
Yeah, the optics on optics are that.
I like that. That's good.
That was kind of a dad joke, but
yeah. Well, you are a dad, so we won't talk about that though.
The EOS M series arrived back in 2012. It's the equivalent of its EF mount for DSLRs that include the M50 Mark II, the M6, obviously. It'd be kind of sad to see it go, I guess, because there are some decent EF-M lenses that it would have been cool if they could continue to live on, like that 22 F2. You had that one. And
I don't know that they'll get rid of it though. There's such a huge difference between RF and the M. Like they're gonna still want a smaller interchangeable lens camera.
Yeah.
So why would they just outright get rid of it? The RF mount is bigger than that camera.
Yeah, exactly.
So how would they they'd have to do some crazy mojo magic to make that work, wouldn't they?
Yeah. I'm definitely not suggesting that you could continue using M lenses on the new whatever.
No, of course not. But what I'm getting at is they're gonna want still a smaller camera for the market because clearly they sell well. So it'd be kind of weird, in my opinion, if they just kind of were like, we're getting rid of it. I don't know.
Yeah, they probably won't kill it off. I think that's what this article kind of says here, that even with the rumors of the APS-C RF mount cameras remain speculation.
I think what they did is they got us with a good title.
The M cameras remain solid, affordable options for beginners. And it, even if their system doesn't quite promise the longevity of rivals like Fuji's X series, which is true. That's one of the things that I love about the Fuji series is that it's a 100% APS-C focused lineup.
Yeah. And so which is one of the things that I hate about that series in a different way.
By keeping it APS-C, they're able to keep the lenses so small.
Oh, I know.
And in a way, it's kind of, it doesn't make any sense really to use Micro Four Thirds because the APS-C cameras from Fuji are the same size as like my Olympus cameras.
Yeah.
And the lenses are the same size.
I love my Fujifilm cameras and the small lenses, but I would also love
full frame,
a full frame option variant. Like, oh man, I can picture it in my brain. A full frame variant of Fujifilm would just be so incredible. You get a little bit of a taste, actually more than a taste, when you use the medium format cameras.
But it's too expensive.
And it's too slow and it's too impractical. So like getting something that is snappy like these APS-C cameras, but that's full frame with the Fujifilm kind of mojo, that'd be pretty snazzy.
I mean, it makes sense from Fuji's kind of competitive perspective to be unique in both areas. They're unique in the APS-C front and they're unique in the medium format.
Right.
And I think the CEO has even said, like, yeah, we're never doing full frame.
Yeah, he did.
But it would be really cool.
It would be really cool if they did. But I think I understand that it's not probably a financial benefit to them. They probably don't know how competitive they can be compared to well-established Canons and Sonys. I mean,
you literally have everybody else doing full frame. You have Leica, Nikon, Panasonic, Canon, Sony. I mean, they'd be entering that game, and it's a lot of
it's a tough
competition.
Game. Yeah.
But they could probably handle it. I mean, Fuji's a great company, and they're well established now.
Yeah, and they could still be different with that kind of retro aesthetic.
Totally.
And of course, they still have their film simulations, which are really snazzy.
They'd have to completely do new lenses.
I think that's the real reason they're not doing it. There's a lot of, but like they'd have to design all new lenses and optics, and that's probably super expensive.
Maybe the X mount wouldn't even work for full frame as well.
I don't think it would. It's way too small.
Although Sony E mount's really small, so
yeah, I think Sony E mount's is maybe the smallest mount you could do and still have full frame.
Moving while we're on the topic of full frame, first rumored Panasonic.
These are all great segues.
First rumored Panasonic S1H II specs.
Wow.
8K 24p and built-in ND.
Oh, that's kind of fun.
Okay. Finally, a potential hybrid camera
with ND
that may have built-in ND filters.
I was going to say with just 8K. Honestly, I don't really care about 8K resolution.
No.
I don't know who does.
I think it's just at this point it's kind of like a competitive feature that you kind of have to have because everybody's doing it. It seems.
Is it like a flex?
I guess.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm not shooting 8K anything.
But who is? I don't think I've shot 8K footage with cameras, but it's so incredibly impractical and unnecessary.
Gives you a lot of room to crop.
Sure. If you need to crop that much, you really messed up.
I guess it's forward thinking. You know, buying a camera with 8K will potentially serve you a good solid 5 to 10 years.
Sure, but you're gonna buy the next one next year anyways.
I know, and it'll get cheaper as well. So it's still kind of early to go into the 8K game because I mean 4K still is overkill for most stuff.
Yeah, I mean, actually, I think 4K now is pretty much the standard. I think we're at the point now where it's kind of like the, you know, when 720 and 1080 were out kind of at the same time and both were being used pretty much the same. I think that's where we are right now at 1080 and 4K.
Yeah.
They're both pretty equally used. There's tons of content on 4K and there's tons of content in 1080.
Yeah.
We're about to cross the threshold, I think.
Yeah, there's a lot of people shooting 4K who are still even, you know, delivering it in 1080. Television and stuff like that. That's all still 1080.
Right.
And then even YouTube, like almost every YouTube video that I see that's not like a gear review is 1080, like for the most part.
That's true.
Unless there's some sort of nerdy YouTuber that really loves 4K.
Yeah, that or it's like a higher production. Like I think, you know, like Good Mythical Morning, they shoot 4K.
They do 4K? Yeah. That's cool. But yeah, I guess they kind of have that aesthetic. They're a professional show.
Exactly.
You know? So, but I mean, professional shows on television aren't 4K.
Yeah.
So,
well, that's because they're more professional.
Yeah. But yeah, this looks really promising. 34 megapixel full frame sensor.
Yep.
14 stops of dynamic range. Built-in END. So this is technology that has been around for a while that we haven't seen
electronic
yet
ND
on a hybrid camera. Yeah, it's basically using some really fancy. I don't even understand how it works.
We reviewed a camera with electronic ND back in the day.
There was definitely,
and I think it was a Panasonic camera.
There was, yeah, maybe
G7.
No. I mean, there's no hybrid that's ever had it. The Sony FX5 had electronic ND built into it.
Okay.
And it was great, and people loved it. And basically, you can kind of set your shutter and your aperture to be locked,
right?
And then have the electronic ND kind of on an auto thing. So if you're indoors and you're going outdoors, it just kind of like automatically ramps the ND in and out, which is really cool.
That's actually kind of interesting.
And it keeps everything else, you know, it allows you to just kind of lock your shutter and aperture how you want it.
Right. And go through different exposure environments.
Yeah, exactly.
More seamlessly. That's cool.
But then obviously too, just using it as straight ND in any old normal use case. And there's no color shift at all because it's not a filter. It's like it's using some chemistry. I don't really know how it works.
Okay.
It's technology that has existed for some time, but we've just never seen it in a hybrid camera.
I can say that about a lot of stuff that in cameras. Like, I don't really know how it works.
That's true.
It's like, we think about the sensor and capture blah, 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 blah. And you're like, sure, that's fine. I hit record.
Well, I don't even know how cameras actually record anything. It's kind of magical at the end of the day.
In fact, we should talk about it later. I did watch a video that just explains how film, like celluloid film works.
Yeah.
And it was super interesting because I've never even considered it.
I have it pulled up in case we have time.
Okay.
So we'll look at it. IBIS, of course. Panasonic's IBIS is best in class for sure.
Yeah, it's really good.
Vlog, of course. Brand new. Oh, look at this. Brand new DFD AF.
Wow.
Depth for defocus. So it's the same. It's the exact same.
It's the same
crappy autofocus.
It's contrast based. They gave it a new name.
Yeah.
Are they rebranding it?
8K 10-bit 420, 6K 422.
6K 60. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, and then I'm sure it'll do RAW out.
What is C4K?
Cinema 4K.
Oh, thank you. I was like, man, explosive 4K.
Cinema 4K will be downsampled from 5.6K resolution, so that would be a nice sharp 4K image.
Nice.
So yeah, the S1H, the original, the one that's currently out, is a great camera. It's just, I feel like with the A7S III, the A7S III is better all around for me.
What's the megapixel count on this?
34 megapixels. I think it's similar
to the last one. Of course, this is all rumors, right?
This is all rumors, but it's the first rumors, and it's talking about the built-in ND. So this will be exciting for video professionals. I know our friend Jordan Drake, who was on previously, he uses the S1H for all of his shooting and loves it. If you're an operator, not having autofocus isn't that big of a deal. You know, if you're actually behind the camera and just pulling focus or making sure that it's in.
That's a good excuse, I guess.
Yeah. So that'll be cool if it happens. If not, you know, it'll probably just still be pretty decent 8K camera. But built-in ND is great.
Built-in ND, that's setting itself apart. That's pretty cool.
So the next bit of news we have here is the Leica phone.
Another camera company making a phone.
So I think the reason we pulled this up here is
because it's cool and weird.
It's a 19 millimeter focal length, f1.8, running Android, of course, because Apple would never do this.
No. That'd be cool if they did.
I don't really hold any, like, I don't hold a candle. Is that the saying? I don't hold a candle to any type of camera that says Hasselblad or Leica or anything on it.
Yeah.
I think it's all just marketing.
It is. It's like the DJI, the Mavic 2 Pro with the Hasselblad logo on it. I'm like,
yeah.
Is it though?
It's kind of unfortunate because honestly, it's kind of a lie. Like the Leica name or Hasselblad name does hold a lot of value because they're good. They're amazing cameras. And when you kind of dumb it down like this, and Leica is kind of desperate enough to sell their name for money. I
guess so. I guess not enough dentists are buying their camera.
There's a couple other cameras. I think the Huawei phones have Leica lenses or something. And sure, maybe Leica has a hand in making it, but when you see the name Leica, you think about like a Leica M or a really beautiful,
which is exactly what they want you to think about.
But you're not going to be getting Leica pictures on this. Give me a break.
No, it's kind of weird looking, to be honest. The Leica logo itself looks cool on it.
There is something interesting here about this particular phone, though.
It's Japan only.
It's got a 20 megapixel 1-inch sensor.
Oh,
so the fact that we're getting a bigger sensor on a camera is interesting. So
on a camera and a phone specifically,
yeah. So we may be able to get some really beautiful images on this.
It has a Leica cap.
It's got a Leica lens cap on it.
Worthy of the red badge? Question mark.
Yeah, that's kind of the big question. Is it worthy of the Leica red badge?
I'm
Probably
sure it isn't.
not.
Yeah.
But I am excited to see a 1-inch sensor in a phone. That's the thing that makes phone cameras look terrible, is the fact that it's just a tiny little sensor.
And the digital sharpness that they add.
Exactly. So we'll have to wait and see for Marquez's shootout that he does with it, or whoever else.
We anxiously await for him to get an early model to review.
But my guess is that it's going to look like every other phone camera.
My guess is that it's going to be like the Red phone, right? Because Red did this too. They kind of did this whole marketing stunt, and it didn't do well.
That's true.
It was really expensive, and honestly, what's just funny about it is the camera quality was pretty bad.
It was really bad.
Yeah.
I have a feeling this will definitely look way better than the Red did, because it's a bigger sensor.
And I don't think they're probably I'm sure they're gonna advertise it for photos.
And it also says, sadly, it's also Japan only for now. So we won't even be able to buy one.
Well, Marquez will still have one.
Yeah, of course. So next we're going to a video that you recommended to me before our recording here. Tell me about this video that we're about to watch.
Okay, so I actually really enjoy cooking, and I really, really enjoy watching other people cook.
People wouldn't like fancy you a chef.
But. No, I don't look like unless they were like, he probably cooks on a fire, which is cool, and I have done that. But no. No, so this guy, that really is the title is what got me. 150-hour chocolate cake.
Okay.
Like, that's 6 days of chocolate cake. Uh-huh. Okay. So how? It doesn't make any sense. But when I clicked on the video, I didn't know what I was getting into. There's no talking. It's a 20-minute video. No talking. It's all text. He writes, and then it's just the audio from the music that he adds, and then it's the audio from his kitchen.
Oh.
And that's really it. It was incredibly peaceful. So if we just play a little bit of it.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to my kitchen, smiley face. It'll kick into HD in a second. There you go. My friends are coming over next week, so I want to bake them something nice. So I'm just reading the text.
Yeah.
I highly recommend everybody go watch the video if you're not already, because you're kind of missing everything here.
But it's oddly...
It's extremely peaceful.
Soothing and peaceful.
First, I'm making brown butter. One of the best things in the world. I wonder if that was... where's he lived, you know?
I don't know. I'm pretty sure he's a part of the channel Tasty.
Okay.
Because I kept suggesting a lot of those. Yeah. It kept suggesting those videos on the side.
Well, maybe that's just because Tasty is one of the biggest food channels.
Yeah. So I think he's some way a part of that. But...
Or not. It's just they thought you would be interested in.
Yeah, it's quite possible.
Just like the rapper.
It's just, like I said, if you skip around, because we don't need to watch his whole video.
What's the 150-hour part of it?
That's how long it took him to make the cake.
Wow.
So that title card you saw in the beginning, see, now there's another one, Tuesday. He's just going through the days and the process of making this cake. Oh, dude. He adds an ungodly amount of chocolate to this cake. Let me add. There's honey bourbon in it. There's fresh espresso. There's espresso infused cream that he makes himself. It's and he does something kind of interesting with the butter that he was browning. Mm-hmm. He pours that in with the whiskey. And then he freezes that for 2 days. So the whiskey and the butter infuse as well. But then they separate in the freezer. The whiskey doesn't freeze, and the butter solidifies on top. And then he takes that and then he remelts it, and then he puts it in the recipe. It's like ultra precision cooking. But what got me is how it was shot, right? Because
it's shot really well.
It's clearly all shot in the morning. You got that beautiful morning light that you're working with. That it's just gorgeous. Sometime around 8 a.m. from his title cards is when he's shooting this. And
his face is never in it.
His face is never in it. He never talks, which I think almost gives you the ability to put yourself in the video.
Yeah.
It's kind of like an interesting psychology of it. And also it's all 100% locked off tripod shots. Which is
composition is everything.
Composition is everything. That's that infused coffee cream. That is just such.
The audio is great too. He must have like either just really good microphones somewhere. Or I don't know what he's doing.
Yeah, I don't know if he's doing sound design or what. It's just
music selection.
It's just great.
You know, from a analytical standpoint, just looking at this and analyzing it, it's a brilliant strategy as a creator because
this part's great. Hold on, he's gonna cut this chocolate. It sounds pretty cool.
Ooh, it pops.
Yeah, that's oddly satisfying.
Dude, it gives me like chills in a good way.
I don't know what's happening.
Wow.
Is this cooking ASMR? Is that what's happening?
Yeah, that is ASMR.
Yeah.
That would be considered ASMR.
It's anyways, I don't know. It's got a ton of views if you go to his channel. Like
it came out literally a couple days ago.
Yeah, as of recording this podcast.
It came out a week ago and it's got almost 2 million views.
Yeah. And if you go to his
Holy cow.
His channel, he doesn't have that many videos. Which is
what I was going to say is like this workflow is really smart because he can shoot in the morning. Well, he's only been active for 10 months.
Right.
So
and look at his view count.
They're all over 1 million except for this one, but
yeah. I guess not as many people care about garlic butter steak, which sounds amazing.
How do you my question is like how does he even start like 10 months ago and just happens to get 3 million views with the first video? Like how is that even possible?
I don't know. Clearly he knows something about YouTube that we don't know. Look at those lifted shadows.
But what I was going to say is like it's a great workflow. Now that I see that he's only doing essentially one every 4 months or one a month.
Well, it seems like maybe kind of when he has time.
Yeah, he might not be a full-time YouTuber or anything, but
no.
Maybe he has other YouTube
Again, I do think he's potentially associated with another channel because you did see his profile picture And then I did see a similar looking man on Tasty. I don't know if they did a collab or what. I really don't know much about this guy.
Well, but what I've been trying to say is that basically, yeah, he's a Tasty producer. He's a producer for Tasty.
There you go.
So that's why he doesn't post often, because he's working for Tasty. And that's why he got 3 million views on the first one, because he knows what works.
Right.
And he may have had a blog post or something that was able to launch it too.
Yeah. Hacking the system.
That workflow is great because he could shoot in the morning and then edit that day's worth of footage.
Right.
Through the rest of the day. And then the next morning, shoot and then edit.
Right.
So in theory, in a week, it's 150 hours. In theory, in 150 hours, you could have the video done. You don't have to just,
somewhat.
Or now that I know that he has a job working for Tasty, he probably would shoot in the morning, go to work.
Right.
And
come home, work on it a little bit.
And then, so that's probably what he was doing. But
it's a good use of what he has, because his space.
I see the end of it.
Yeah, you really need to go and watch the whole thing, because there's something about watching the process of him building layer upon layer, day after day, with this video that's so enticing. Because typically when I watch,
look at that!
I know.
Hello there.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, what a
dude!
shot.
There's probably 2,000 calories in that one slice of cake.
That looks so moist and perfect.
Yeah, it looks. I think that's his thumbnail pretty much.
That's probably $100 or more cake.
Well, I was doing the math on it because I was so enthralled. The whiskey is $50.
Wow.
Right. And then he uses an entire bag of coffee, which I'm sure is super high quality coffee. He has all organic milks and creams that he's using in that as well, which just increases the cost dramatically.
Unreal.
Looks like super expensive, nice quality chocolates as well that he's infusing it. And let me tell you, there's like a billion layers of chocolate that went into this. So not including labor, I think it is probably just a little over $100 for just the ingredients.
Oh my goodness.
And that whoever his friend is,
he's a lucky friend.
A lucky friend. My gosh. But yeah.
What a cool idea for a channel too, to block out the head and make it just about the food, and the text on it makes you kind of want to watch it and read along.
Yeah, it was.
YouTube is so fascinating.
It was something that I stumbled upon.
Good find.
And
I'm gonna give this guy a subscribe.
Yeah, there you go. I did the same. I liked the video and everything. It was, which is a good opportunity for you guys to like this video.
Yeah, if you haven't liked it already, it really does help us with the algorithm and everything. If you give us a thumbs up on this video on YouTube, and if you aren't already subscribed and you've watched this far, would you please consider subscribing? It would mean the world to us.
Absolutely.
All right, so we'll finish out our conversation today talking about how film actually works. Another video that you sent me, and I believe I've actually seen this one before.
You have. This is relatively new.
Okay, maybe I haven't.
There you go.
So are you going through a film phase?
Film kick?
A film kick a little bit?
Yeah, without owning a film camera, I'm going through a film kick.
You are.
I think
you were showing me some photos that you've taken on your Fuji using the film stock simulations.
Yeah.
That we talked about last episode.
Yeah, so yesterday I went out and I played with more recipes from that app that I was telling you about.
What's the name of it again?
Fuji X Weekly.
Fuji X Weekly. Go check that out.
Yeah.
Very
and
cool.
so I played more with them, and I came up with some cool photos. But I think I am enticed with film just because it's so, the artistry is almost still there, which is kind of interesting. Whereas with our cameras now, with it being super digital, it kind of has become more of a technical skill, rather than an artistry skill. And so that to me is interesting. Like even the process of developing the photos is almost an artistry. And this guy has a channel called Smarter Every Day, and I've been watching his channel for a while. It's really interesting content that he has on his channel, but it's almost never about cameras ever.
Okay.
So it was just really fascinating. I saw how does film work, and I was like, oh, this is crazy. Like this channel that I watch is crossing over into, kind of my world a little bit.
Yeah.
And it's a long video, 37 minutes.
Again,
but like,
well worth the time.
He gets into like the chemical makeup of celluloid and how it works, and
latent image on the film, and it advances over here into the box and it hides it in the dark, so that you have this latent image next to all these unexposed.
So he goes into the chemistry.
He goes into the chemistry of it. Then he goes to a local development, like vintage development shop, I guess you would call it. and they walk us through the process of developing the film. It's kind of like a plug for them as well. So it's kind of a cool collab that they end up doing. But yeah, I think there's something about film that we still can't emulate on digital.
There's just a magic to it. I mean, that's what he put in the title here. It's magic. And I agree. I think there is something just really human and just natural about film that you can't get with digital.
Yeah.
Because it is chemistry. It's not a bunch of ones and zeros and, a sensor. It's truly capturing reality using chemistry.
Right.
So it's as real of an imprint of life as you're going to get.
Well, something that blew my mind is that in the celluloid, and you learned this in this video, is that it's actually silver. So you know how we used to capture photos? I'm talking like 1800s photos. We're going back in history.
Yeah.
We used to capture photos on metal slates, right? And I never understood the transition. We went from metal slates to celluloid. And I didn't really put any imagination or thought into like what changed between the two. But what's interesting is that it's actually still technically metal in the celluloid. It's little grains. That's where we get the term grain of silver.
Grains of silver. The ISO is silver.
Yeah. And they have, the ISOs, and how big or small those silver bits are is the ISO and the grain size.
Oh, wow.
Right.
So that's why it gets grainier when you use a higher ISO level.
Right. And the grain is physically larger.
But it allows more absorption of light.
Yeah. It's essentially like how larger photodiodes work in sensors.
Interesting.
Versus smaller ones.
I didn't know that.
You see, it's crazy. So it's like...
Is that all in the video?
It's all in the video. So
everybody go watch this.
Definitely worth a watch. I mean, you have to be okay with some heady stuff. Sometimes people talk over what I can understand. Yeah, this is part of it where he's talking about...
Is that the graphic?
The different layers. This one, he's talking about color film now. So he's talking about the different things. And then when you wash it, you wash away bits only leaving the colored dye. And then you get an inverted image. Right? So that's how film is. And then when you process it, you uninvert the image. And he goes through all that as well. And it's incredibly interesting. So... yeah, I'm on a bit of a film kick, even though I don't own a film.
I love it.
A film camera. I think that I would love to pick one up one day, but it's an expensive hobby.
You can borrow the Polaroid if you want.
The little Polaroid. Yeah, this is pretty cool. This is an exact. I would love to mess with 35 millimeter. I do want to get one of these though.
These are fun. Yeah,
it's kind of like a party camera.
Yeah, it's not really much of a. Yeah, you're not going to really get anything that looks good on it.
Yeah, but it's a good like memory capture.
That's what it was designed for. It's just like quick memory capturing.
Yeah.
And you can hand it out and give it to people.
Right.
You wanted to talk about Xbox a little bit.
Okay.
Let's talk about it.
We got 15 minutes. Hey, who wants to talk about Halo for a minute? So
I am not a video game person at all, but if you are a Halo person, comment down below and let us know, because you're probably gonna be thrilled that we're talking about this.
Okay, so I mean, I just wanna come out and say that I'm more than a Halo fan. I mean, I have a problem. It's an obsession, and not just me, Zach as well.
Yeah, I know.
If Zach was here, we'd still be talking about Halo right now. I just want to let you know.
Halo Recovery Anonymous.
Yeah, well, let me tell you, we haven't had a good Halo game in like a decade, okay? So we're all like crossing our fingers, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But we don't necessarily need to talk about Halo and the gameplay and all that stuff and how great it looks.
Yeah.
Because it looks pretty cool this time.
Oh, so there's a new trailer or
There
something?
is a trailer, yeah. Okay. It came out, E3 was
What's it called?
Past Halo Infinite trailer.
Okay, I'm assuming first.
It'll probably be the first result because it's new. Yeah, that's the one. So what I kind of want to talk about is actually this trailer. We can skip to the part where they actually play the trailer. Keep going a little farther. I kind of want to talk about the cinematics of video games.
Yeah,
because something that is interesting about video games, and I think we touched on this a little bit with the Unreal Engine last podcast, is video games are becoming more and more realistic, and we're able to use them in cinema. But video games have been essentially emulating cinema for a good while now, and pretty effectively as well. I mean, this is essentially a really epic oneer that we're watching right now.
Yeah.
And it's so well composed, and they're getting really good at being storytellers in games.
And they're keeping it in the video game aesthetic too. They could animate it like a Pixar movie and make it look like a movie if they wanted to.
Sure.
But they're keeping it still authentic to what the game will kind of look like.
Absolutely, because they want to keep it seamless. So that's the thing about games, is like they kind of want the cutscene to blend into the gameplay.
Yeah, once the cutscene ends and then you're now in control, they want you to be like, oh, I'm in control now?
Yeah, exactly.
Not like, this really beautiful. I mean, I remember Final Fantasy would always have these really gorgeous animated.
Some games do that. They have like this high distinction between what they would call the story elements or the cutscenes and then the actual gameplay. Mm-hmm. And some games like to blend it really nicely. But I do think it's interesting how incredibly cinematic they're getting. And there's this game that came out for PlayStation, actually. So Sony product. Can't play it on Xbox. But it was called, I believe it was called Ghost of Tsushima.
Okay.
And Ghost of Tsushima was a video game that was designed to look like an old Japanese film. And they literally have a mode where you can play it in black and white, like old film grain.
And it's only on PlayStation.
It's only on PlayStation.
So this is just the trailer.
Yeah, but I mean, it's essentially the gameplay cinematics, but the gameplay itself looks like the films that, of course, highly stylized, and it looks really pretty. But there is a black and white version of the game where you're able to play it. And it was, I can't remember, there's a specific director that they based the style off of specifically.
Just old classic like samurai movies.
Exactly, yeah. So like when you look at it, they kind of put the character off on a third too.
Yeah, rule of
which
thirds.
Is very abnormal in video games. You don't do that.
So no matter where you're moving, the camera is kind of linked to the subject in the proper cinematic composition.
Exactly.
So this is all gameplay that we're looking at right now. This is
technically gameplay, but it kind of blurs the line a little bit. Of course, you still have that classic video game over-the-shoulder look.
Sure.
Because at a certain point, you can't get away from that too much. It is a video game. You do need to be able to see your character and where he's going.
Yeah, they're definitely just like rule of thirds the whole thing.
Yeah, but like this is incredible looking.
It is, yeah. Look at so we're flying over these wheat fields and it just looks so cinematic. You can see it almost looks like there's a diffusion filter on the lens, so the highlights are kind of blooming a little bit. This is a game, and we're watching gameplay right now, but it looks like a movie. So I mean, what does this mean for cinema? What does this mean for video games? I mean, they're going to start just getting closer and closer, I guess. And
yeah, the question is kind of where's it all headed, I guess.
I'm going to look at some black and white gameplay. Yeah,
the black and white gameplay. It is, after all, a game.
That's cool.
But this is literally like in the game. You just play it in black and white. Although this looks like someone just took the trailer and made it black and white.
Yeah, it's the same thing.
Which is clever. What do they call it? It's a specific mode. I can't pronounce that. Kurosawa mode.
Okay. Yeah, boom.
Yeah, and it actually changes the aspect ratio.
It goes into 4:3 instead of 2:3:9. That's really cool. The only thing that I ever saw was the Cuphead game.
Oh yeah,
that game.
That's pretty cool too.
Really cool. Stylistically wise, it's similar. Like it looks like an old 20s, 30s like cartoon.
Yeah, and they did a really good job. I played through that game with a friend of mine. Let me tell you, some of the most infuriating hours of my entire life.
People say this game is extremely hard.
It is, but oddly enough, like you keep playing it. It's like a weird frustration.
Yeah, it looks like a 20s cartoon that was made by Walt Disney or something.
And the thing is that the reason why it looks so authentic is because it is actually hand animated.
Really?
Like all the animations that you're seeing are hand drawn characters, and they just, they figured out what the characters would be doing and how they would react, and then they drew those literal frames.
Wow, that's cool.
By hand. So it is interesting how the worlds are kind of blending and how dynamic these things are getting. I think that's why I'm particularly interested in games these days. It's just that it's becoming a way of filmmaking in a way.
Yeah, people are just getting creative with it and doing all sorts of different things. I mean, now that, I mean, gaming is just taking over the world. I mean, it's pretty amazing.
Well, yeah.
I'm not a gamer, so I'm not the person to talk to. But
I know, but that's why I figured we could at least talk about the cinematics.
That's why I have, these were my games.
Yeah.
Game Boy Color and Game Boy Advance.
Yeah.
I pulled out my Game Boy Color this week. I had my Game Boy Advance last week, but...
They're good. They're good. Those were solid.
Although, as a kid, they were great, but like as an adult, you play it and you're like, yeah, this is kind of boring.
Yeah, they're not quite as cinematic and as immersive as modern day games.
Definitely not.
But those games were designed just to be fun, and that's it. So that's pretty cool.
So you have a video coming out soon, hopefully about the film stock emulation stuff.
Maybe
we'll promote it.
If if I can. I was gonna work on it yesterday, but instead I was watching cooking videos
for an hour.
So
yeah,
time kind of moved, and I didn't. So crazy.
Yeah. So,
although I did shoot some photos, so I have a list of my different film stocks that I was emulating, which I can actually pull up. I was using Fuji Color Superia 1600. I was using Polaroid, something called Color Negative, Kodachrome 2.
Ooh.
Something called Dramatic Monochrome. So obviously these are made by people. They can name them whatever they want.
And these are all available on that website.
Yeah. So this one's Fuji X Weekly. Age Color Superia Extra 400, and then something called Grizzly Ride.
So
kind of crazy.
Everybody go check that out. This company or these people, they basically just do all sorts of different variations on the built-in recipes and come up with these. They call them recipes.
Yeah. So like we have the film simulations, which is Fujifilm's interpretations of their film stocks, right? Mm-hmm. And then you have the ones that essentially people go into the advanced settings, which we've already talked about. And like, there you go. They give you...
You say, go to Velvia, dynamic range DR200, right. Highlight -1, shadow -2.
Color +2. Yeah, exactly. And they have it for the different sensors. Although I was finding that you could adapt ones. So like, let's say it's built for the XT3, XT2 sensor or whatever, and you have the XT4, which has different settings in the menus. You can kind of like play around with it and get it to match somewhat. Some of them just don't work.
Looks like there's a lot of people doing this. Like it's kind of a nerd fest.
Yeah, it's and
it's awesome.
I've found myself in it a little bit. So I kind of do want to make content on it. I just want to make sure that it's useful. So
I love it. Yeah, everybody go check Fuji X Weekly out if you're a Fuji shooter. And be on the lookout for Connor's content.
Well, it could come out. Who knows?
So as we wrap up here, there are some thoughts that I've had about this show, and obviously this is the second time that Connor's been on here, and he'll continue to be here, Lord willing. We do have Kai W lined up for next week, so that'll be fun. I'm going to interview Kai.
That's awesome. When's the last time you saw him? Germany?
The last time I saw him, it was Germany, Photokina. But
yeah, you keep up with everyone.
We've stayed in touch over text and stuff. He's got a new house. Locke is nearby now, so he's able to collaborate with Locke, which is awesome for them. So it'll be fun to kind of catch up with him. But yeah, I'm still kind of like, I've been trying to figure out what I want to do with my YouTube career. And to be honest, like I'm at a very content place right now with this show and with my actual job. And if you guys ever want to know more about that, let me know. It's nothing too sexy. It's just, I'm shooting course material in the photography education space.
We could maybe talk about that when the course is closer to release.
That's a good idea.
That could be a good use of time.
Totally. So that's why I have the C70. That's why I have some of the stuff that would not necessarily make sense for a YouTuber, but make more sense as a person shooting a lot of content.
Yeah.
But I thought I was going to like start my own YouTube channel, and I still may, but this channel has kind of served that for me.
Yeah.
It's kind of scratched that itch, and I've really enjoyed this. I would love for this set to get better. I'd love for it to look better, to have more dialed in cameras and lighting.
Yeah.
I would
100%.
also...
The show could definitely use a facelift in the space environment. It could look a little more on brand eventually. But, I think it looks pretty good for working with what we got.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
It's very Dave.
I mean, there's a guitar.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, so how bad can it look,
Got my Epiphone Les Paul here.
Yeah, he had to tell me that Les Paul and Epiphone are the same thing. Yeah. I didn't have a clue. I don't know anything about guitars.
It's an Epiphone as the company, and it's a Les Paul model.
Sure.
But Yeah, I'm even thinking about maybe buying new cameras and reviewing them here on the podcast.
That's a great idea.
And making that, instead of me just like stressing out and worrying about a whole YouTube channel about reviewing gear, kind of merging that in with this show. So still having guests on as regularly as I can. I've got Philip Bloom on a hook as well.
That'll be cool.
So we're going to definitely get Philip on as soon as we can. And then, like I said, we have Kai W lined up for next week.
Yeah. Don't worry, guys. You won't have to see me that often. Okay.
But then Connor will still be in here. So, and we may kind of blend and merge those two things together. So this show is still kind of like a work in progress.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you guys, but I'm excited about it. It's been a fun kind of experimental time for this show. I know that you guys are used to having guests every single week, but I'm just trying to figure out a way to make this as consistent as possible for us. It's been a bit of a challenge lining up guests every single week and having, the most amazing guests every single week. And, even people who aren't like super well known, but are like amazing creators. I love having those people on as well.
Yeah.
Because you can always learn stuff from everybody.
Absolutely.
This show has always been a little bit of a blend between photographers and videographers. But because Connor and I are video people first, we're always going to have a heavy kind of pull into the video area.
Although we did talk a hefty bit about photos last two podcasts.
So yeah, I mean, honestly, I guess we're just kind of a little bit of both, and maybe a little bit more on the video side.
For sure, more video.
So yeah, let me know your thoughts on all this in the comments on the YouTube channel. Again, we are pushing to the YouTube channel more, but we're never going to stop uploading the audio for our audio listeners out there.
Absolutely.
Hopefully these are still just as entertaining for you listening to the audio, but if you're kind of missing out on some of the things we're referring to, then of course I encourage you to go watch the video. And I've been kind of going back and forth on the clips thing, whether or not I should start a separate clip channel or just upload everything on the one channel.
Right. I think YouTube would prefer that we do clips.
Yeah, probably a clip channel. I don't know. You guys let me know. I'm just saying all this verbally out there to put it out there for you guys. Maybe you have some suggestions or some ideas. Let me know on Twitter, Instagram, at Dave Mays on Twitter, and Dave Mays _ on Instagram.
Or in the YouTube comments.
Comments. And then, of course, give Connor a follow. Connor McCaskill on YouTube.
I upload every blue moon.
Connor McCaskill on Twitter. Connor _ McCaskill on Instagram.
That's right, but don't tweet at me.
Yeah, don't tweet.
Don't tweet me.
He's not a tweeter. I'm a tweeter.
I don't tweet, okay?
I've been taking a little bit of a break from social media, and I've been playing my F1 Clash game.
There you go.
Way more than social media.
See, you said you're not a gamer, but here we are.
That's true. That is the only thing that I've ever been like super obsessed with is F1.
After this, I'll show you a cool car racing trailer that came out.
Okay.
It's pretty snazzy. Yeah.
Once again, I'm your host, Dave Mays, and then we've got the infamous Connor McCaskill. We'll see you guys next week with Kai W. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast. It's the Golden Hour Podcast brought to you by the Polar Pro Studio. And yeah, we'll see you on the flip side.
Later, guys.